Have you seen this? It's crazy. There's these 3 biohackers out in California, and they're running a Kickstarter project to create a synthetically engineered plant using synthetic biology that glows in the dark. Am I concerned about this? Yes, very.
What if we use trees to light our streets instead of electric street lamps? Imagination and innovation are the forces that have advanced our civilization throughout history. Our generation's frontier is synthetic biology. Our guide, nature itself. And as usual, the potential is limited only by our greatest imagination.
Glowing Plant was the first Kickstarter campaign to fund a synthetic biology application, or even a genetically modified organism application.
Synthetic biology means a lot of different things to different people, but I look at it as computer-assisted design and synthesis of living things.
It's really about engineering, so it's bringing engineering principles to biology, and then building an organism, building a system that does what you want.
So how do you make a glowing plant? We start by designing our DNA sequences using some online software called Genome Compiler. When we're ready, we press print, and they create it for us. The process is so easy that we think we can replicate it at home. And for $250, backers of our Kickstarter campaign got a maker kit that allows them to create their own plant.
We raised just under $500,000 to create a bioluminescent plant. So we're taking some genes from a marine bacteria called Vibrio fischeri and putting them into Arabidopsis. And the end result will be a plant that dimly glows in the dark and can serve as a symbol to people about the power of this new technology. It's got a great potential. It's such a simple idea. You say glowing plant, people get it instantly. It's cool, it's amazing. They've seen Avatar.
I think one of the most important precedents that Glowing Plants did was, one, it showed that there is a direct-to-consumer path for funding in doing a science-based project. It captured the public's attention. People opened their wallets, they said this is great, and they raised $500,000.
You know, the whole idea behind this project is something that looks like science fiction or fantasy for people on the street is actually feasible. And it's so feasible you can crowdsource and crowdfund it.
I think we need to become at least as aware of the possibilities of this technology, particularly if we can democratize it, if we can put this into the hands of entrepreneurs, of small organic farmers, and then we can really, see the benefits of this.
I think when people see the glowing plant, they'll see it's something beautiful that deserves to be here. That not just deserve, maybe it's meant to be here.
My name is Jim Thomas. I work with a technology watchdog called the Etc. Group. And for about 30 years now, we've been tracking how big biotech companies like Monsanto are trying to take over the food supply and harming farmers and biodiversity in the process. There are many very good reasons to be concerned about synthetic biology. It messes with nature in rather fundamental ways. It's an extremely good way to make bioweapons, and it could really affect farmers in the developing world. So if these 3 biohackers actually mail out thousands of seeds across the US, or even just a few of them, it will be the first deliberate environmental release of synthetic organisms anywhere in the world. Help us to put a stop in the test tube before the era of synthetic biology pollution even begins.
I definitely had messages sort of, wish you guys should just drop dead, the world would be better without you, and some sort of unpleasant messages like that I don't think really help frame a debate like this. I think it would be better to see a more scientific discussion take place rather than less of a sort of emotive discussion.
GMOs and transgenic organisms are a really complicated area because the public has been taken advantage of for so many years by profit-oriented GMOs.
When we talk about GMOs, we're talking about transgenic organisms. That's been in existence since the mid-70s. A small museum dedicated to living things that have been intentionally altered by human beings over the course of the last 10,000 years or so. So we talk about domestication, selective breeding, genetic engineering, and synthetic biology altogether.
Until certain changes in like the patenting laws and regulations and the defunding of the public university, biology, like nobody cared about biology because you couldn't make any money from it. And yet, does that give a blank check to any kind of forced innovations? Because like no one wanted transgenic foods. They're like, we don't really want to eat this. Why? So why is it being pushed on us, right?
I mean, I don't think that synthetic biology is a threat. I think that humans are a threat. And any tool in human hands is therefore another threat. But there are lots of tools we use that are only threats, and synthetic biology could also be a benefit.
Just blankly, rejecting this old technology and all the benefits, just saying you shouldn't do that, that's just silly and wrong.
Well, I guess my question about the glowing plant then is, what is the status of the glowing plant? Okay, we know it's not food, therefore it's not regulated, right? Here's an empty spot in the regulations and we can do something. But that's not the same as saying he wants to move the discussion away from food. It's just saying, well, I'm going to take advantage of this because I can.
I wouldn't say we're approved. We have an indication that we will not require approval, if that makes sense. Once we have the final product and the final gene construct, we will submit a process that's called the Am I Regulated? And we essentially tell the USDA, this is what we've made, this is what we put into it, and then they give the formal written clarification.
There's nothing wrong about creating new things. If there's something wrong about that, then nature is wrong, because that's what nature does. When humans do it, what's wrong with that? We're not making bioweapon. We're not bioterrorists. We're not trying to do anything wrong. We're just creating new, beautiful living thing. I don't know what's wrong with that. So that's at least my personal opinion.
I don't think it's dangerous. And I don't think there's going to be much of any environmental impact from the glowing plant release, simply because I don't think the plant's going to glow very much. Let's not kid ourselves. Glowing Plant is a company that's backed by Singularity University and investors around Singularity University, and very sort of in the transhumanism orbit around Silicon Valley. But they are also in very much in competition with a company that is funded by Monsanto. And both of these broader funding agencies, whether it be Monsanto or the VCs around Singularity University, are trying to pry open a new market.
They have these rubber stamp committees that basically say, are you doing something that's important for the future of humankind? Yes, stamp, it's okay, don't go overboard. Then they get an art application. And it's like, I would like to do the same thing that scientists are doing, but I'm just thinking of it as a new way of sculpting. If it's for frivolous circus reasons, it's not okay. If it's for curing all disease, it is okay. But, who promises what and which is a circus is the question.
What is the difference between an artist doing this and a scientist doing this?
If scientists can do it, farmers can do it, and military can do it, then why not artists too?
In the USA today, emotion is lacking. So increasing the range of emotions is good, even if they're not fun emotions. We inject algae inside of zebrafish embryos, and now we release them into the aerarium. So we sell aerarium. Perhaps I like to bring trauma to the world, but maybe it's for a wake-up call, and maybe I'm just sadistic, but that's my aesthetic. Workhorse Zoo is one of my early works. I realized that every lab had their organism, like their totem organism, there were frog labs, and there were worm labs, and there were fly labs, and that never did the flies or the frogs or the worms get to hang out with each other. So I thought, well, I want to live with all the workhorses of molecular biology inside of a clean room, and I want to sleep with them, I want to hang out with them, I want us to all like cohabitate. I lived inside of this clean room for a week with E. coli and the yeast, worms, flies, Arabidopsis thaliana, zebrafish, xenopus frogs, and mice. It was a little tedious. There were times when we didn't have enough to eat except each other. Besides food, life and death issues was what it's like to be on display. You know, I mean, what it's like for an organism to be stuck under a microscope. So it was this idea of being permanently on display and this sort of pornographic under the microscope thing. I've had PETA, like the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, had some problems with the Workhorse Zoo. I've tried to get Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth to go on stage with me to talk about things, and they haven't responded. I have an exhibition up in The Hague in the Netherlands right now, and it's called Fist Save Mop Bait, which is an acronym for Forced Interspecies Symbiosis Transgenic Solar Animal Vegetable Environmental Microinjection Organismic Personality Behavioral Audio Integrity Test, or Fist Save Mop Bait. I'll tell you about the plant, but we're going to talk to the curator, and some stuff is going on, so we'll find out what it is.
Okay.
Ina!
Hi.
Hey, you don't have video!
Well, you know that. It's because I'm growing older, so you don't see.
Oh, you're so rough. Come on, turn your video on for me. The major thing is I want people to know what we did, because nobody seems to understand what I made in the lab with Bert. It's just a fucked up organism, and it wasn't made for anything but art. And it was understood by the scientists as being an experiment in philosophy and not in utilitarian use value, and not in actually anything that they would want to do themselves as scientists, because it's useless.
You're interested in getting the public more into this whole debate, aren't you?
I am.
Yes. You do that in your very, very interesting artistic way.
Mooi! Eigenlijk als die vis straks op zonne-energie leeft, hoeft hij niet meer te eten. Uiteindelijk kunnen we misschien zelfs zo ver gaan dat mensen het niet meer hoeven te eten. Dus als we deze vragen niet stellen voordat we beginnen met het onderzoek, zijn helemaal aan het eind, als er al mensen rondlopen op dit protestagewerk, is het een beetje laat om die vragen te stellen.
Can we invite Greenpeace? Can we invite Friends of the Earth? Can we invite like the Citizens for a GMO-Free Europe? If they're naive, let them present. But if they say no, let the record reflect we invited them. I just really like critics. I think like we should have a wide debate.
Of course you like critics.
Yeah, I like critics that think that this is the worst thing on the planet. But I also, I don't want to not invite them, because that's like, what's that called? Censorship, you know? I'm trying to explain to them that I want stimulation of debate, and I include their arguments as valid arguments. A debate isn't full without critics of GMO. Why wouldn't you have people that are totally against it? I actually think a lot of this is dangerous. I think it's upsetting to the environment. In some ways, I'm setting the worst example as a way of trying to help people understand what's actually happening. A lot of my philosophy is that we actually don't know what we're doing. Like that we have no fucking clue what the effect of anything that we do is. If we fuck up our world, that's suicidal. If we sit while the world gets fucked without doing anything, that's beyond human control.
When people ask, are you for or against GMOs, it's kind of a category that is so absurdly large that it's impossible to give a kind of thumbs up or thumbs down kind of verdict on. I think the only way one can assess these is on a case-by-case basis.
I think big science has created an impression that biology or life sciences are, for the most part, beyond the reach of an untrained person. So often what happens under current circumstances is that these innovations take place, and whether we like it or not, they become part of our lives.
GMOs and transgenic organisms in the public mind are very much equated with profit-driven modifications. I think that the fear there is a very real, very justifiable fear.
And that's an important part of being in a democracy, is to have a debate like this and to have different sides of views. The biggest reason people should be literate about biotechnology is to overcome this sort of fear of the unknown.
These technologies are here, and I think it's going to take a more informed debate with the public to help us kind of craft how we use these technologies and what they get used for and not for.
If you're sculpting with life, assuming that it's a stable mutation, it may last into eternity. So the ethics is not something that you debate. The ethics is stamped into the anatomy and the physiology of the organism in question. These organisms are omnipresent around us. They're in our food chain, they're in our animal feed, they're in our animals, and very soon, if not right now, they're in us, right? We are becoming transgenic. So when is it not the right time to talk about transgenics?